Eva Narayanam Namaskritya Narancha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Piri Nashtakrai Shavadreju Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satchidananda Das Goswami, chapter 44, and the discussion of book distribution is going on. Whenever Srila Prabhupada met an interested person proficient in any foreign language, he would request that person to translate his books. In 1972, he had written, "I'm also very encouraged to hear that Japanese language translations of some of my books will be brought out soon, because without books and magazines, what authority or what basis have we got for preaching?" Similarly, Srila Prabhupada had returned to an American devotee in Indonesia. "I'm especially happy to hear that you've got a Chinese boy there who is doing some translating work. Yes, the Chinese-speaking portion of the world is very huge and it requires to infiltrate gradually." Look at the word Prabhupada is using, infiltrate, especially by distributing our literatures widely in Chinese languages. So his service is the greatest to Krishna. Later, when Prabhupada heard that the Chinese boy Yashamati Sutta had finished translating 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita into Chinese, he wrote that they should immediately print those 3 chapters as a small book. So yes, devotees everywhere with different backgrounds, they were translating books. In Hindi also, translation was done. Although Prabhupada wrote his books in English, but if one who's translating is not in tune with the philosophy, so many times we lose the real meaning, what Prabhupada is trying to say. It's not like word-to-word translation. Sometimes you don't find the real word to use in place what Prabhupada is saying, and then sometimes we lose the meaning, like in Hindi translation. So translation was done wonderfully, but many places there are mistakes, and sometimes you lose that essence also. So this, I believe, what BBT should look into to get the real taste of translation. Whatever is done is great, but still some part is missing. I don't know about Chinese or other languages, but Hindi, because we have read, and there are mistakes. Later, when Prabhupada heard that ISKCON Australia rose to prominence in the book distribution competition, and by 1974 was competing with Los Angeles ISKCON and the Radha Damodar Party for world leadership. By the fall of 1974, about a dozen top Australian and New Zealand distributors were selling daily more than 20 big books each. The centers in Australia, like those in America, more than doubled their book distribution between 1973 and 74. When book distribution had been just beginning in America in 1970, no books had been available in England. But within a year, Krishna book distribution had begun there. And Srila Prabhupada had written, "All of my disciples in London Center are very intelligent, and they should unite around the single task of selling Krishna book widely throughout Britain." By 1974, the devotees in Britain were valiantly distributing books. During one busy 6-day period, they distributed 600 volumes. 600 volumes of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, 400 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and 1,000 back to Godhead magazines. Can't even imagine this kind of distribution. India was special. There is Srila Prabhupada had introduced book distribution through the ISKCON Life Membership Program. Wealthy Indians were more inclined to accept the books as part of an ISKCON membership package, which included such benefits as free accommodations in ISKCON temples throughout the world. But in India, as elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada wanted his books distributed to colleges, to libraries, to prominent citizens, and to the masses. By the end of 1974, Prabhupada's disciples were ready to print Hindi and Bengali editions of Back to Godhead. When Srila Prabhupada heard that the Western devotees in India were complaining of insufficient engagement, he replied, I am pleased you are selling many Krishna books daily. All our men should go out with books. There is sufficient engagement. To his GBC secretary in India, he wrote, engage all of them in book distribution specifically and take with you some Sankirtan party. Without books, we will make no progress in India. Srila Prabhupada had written to Tejas, his temple president in Delhi. Prabhupada had also trained his leaders in India in the strict policy of 50-50. Proceeds from life membership or any other collections should go 50% to the BBT and 50% for construction and other projects. On his order, the American BBT had been making donations of books to India, and by 1974 had donated $300,000 worth of literature. Although America was a leading pioneer in book printing and distribution, Prabhupada foresaw worldwide printing and distribution of his books, eventually to surpass that in the USA. So $300,000 worth of literature, they gave it to India. That's lots of money in 1974. Srila Prabhupada had created transcendental competition among his disciples. In 1971, he had observed with pleasure Keshav in San Francisco leading the society in Krishna book distribution. Prabhupada had promised that he would leave Los Angeles and stay in San Francisco if Keshav out-distributed his brother Karandha. And over the years, he had continued to instigate such competition, fanning the fires of book distribution. He would encourage the leaders to send him reports, and then he would respond with letters, raising the book distribution fever even higher. The whole of ISKCON waited to hear the latest quote from Prabhupada, inspiring them to go on and on. When Srila Prabhupada had given the lecture in January 1974, stressing, distribute books, distribute books, distribute books, several devotees in the audience had vowed on the spot to dedicate their lives to that instruction. And when Prabhupada had sent the handwritten note down from his room in Los Angeles, everyone should go with the Sankirtan party as soon as possible. That one line had created a spirit of sacrifice and dedication in the hearts of many disciples who felt themselves destined to take up that order as a life and soul. See, the faith, the love they had for Prabhupada, it's amazing. Just one line. Because they just knew Prabhupada is a eternal well-wisher. They just had that connection. And Prabhupada always kept his words. That's more important for a leader to do. I mean, one story is coming to my mind, not the book distribution. When Prabhupada was in New York at 26 Second Avenue, he would be in his room typing the manuscripts, typing his commentaries, purports. That room was on the first floor. And one man, one hippie guy, I mean, completely like drug addict, he would just sit on the ground floor under that window where upstairs Prabhupada is typing. And he would just listen to typewriter going tuck, 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 tuck. No chanting, no the thing, he was just sitting there. And then after some time, he left New York, because these people, they just go with whatever their drugs tell them to do, they do. Many years later, after Prabhupada had left, he was in Detroit, he somehow got one of the books, small books. And when the devotees at that time, and then they used to do book distribution, they would always show Prabhupada's picture, or this Swamiji has done this. So that person, he recognized Srila Prabhupada's picture. So he didn't say anything to the devotee. I don't know how he got the book. But so at that time, in all the books, the list of centers was also given. So he somehow found the center in Detroit. And the center or temple in Detroit that time was in downtown Detroit, which was far from where he was at. But he started walking. He walked all the way to Detroit temple. And it happened to be on Sunday. He came inside the temple, and Prabhupada's murti is there in every temple on his Vyasasana. So he came, stood next to Prabhupada's deity, and he was speaking to Prabhupada. He was thinking Prabhupada is sitting there, listening to him. After a while, he realized that this is not a person, this is a murti. Anyway, it was the Sunday feast program, and somehow that day Indradaman Maharaj was there. So the devotees saw this person talking to Prabhupada deity, and probably he was crying also. So they brought him to Indradaman Maharaj. Maharaj was outside in the garden where the feast was going on. And then Maharaj asked him, "Who are you? What's the connection? How come you here?" Then he told the whole story. I would sit under that window at 26 Second Avenue, and Swamiji would be typing on his typewriter, tuck, 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 tuck. And he said, I would just sit there and listen to his typewriter. No commentary, no philosophy. He just said, I just got connected with Swamiji. And too bad when I came here, he has left. So even with the typing, Prabhupada connected with some souls. And after that, that person just left. He said, but so much of connection he had with Prabhupada. And what to speak of devotees who served him and who were taken care of by Prabhupada. So much of faith. Here, Prabhupada is saying, distribute books, distribute books, and several devotees in the audience had vowed on the spot to dedicate their lives to that instruction. This is faith. This is faith in Prabhupada. And it's the experience of devotees. Prabhupada would just never let them down. Even at the time of death, one devotee was, I believe it was Mataji, was leaving her body. And at the time of death, she just looked up and she said, oh, Prabhupada, you are here. Krishna didn't come. Well, he sent Prabhupada to bring that devotee back. So with that faith, when we serve Krishna, following the instructions of Prabhupada, Prabhupada definitely is going to take care. Although Rameshwar had been caught up by the waves of the Sankirtan ocean from the beginning, Srila Prabhupada cast Rameshwar's service when he wrote, make program to distribute our books all over the world. Our books are being appreciated by learned circles, so we should take advantage. Whatever progress we have made is simply due to distributing these books. So go on and do not divert your mind for a moment from this. When devotees in London reported to Srila Prabhupada their increase in book and magazine sales, he responded by inviting them to compete. I've heard that in San Francisco, they're selling daily not less than 75 Krishna books. So I'm very much encouraged to hear this. Now take this spirit of transcendental rivalry and consult with Dayanand and others there in England to become the first-rate booksellers. When writing to a sannyasi disciple preaching in Scotland, where the devotees are perhaps not fully aware of the scope of book distribution in the US, Srila Prabhupada mentioned the latest book scores from New York and commented, New York is leading the list. So how is encouraging everybody? Srila Prabhupada also inspired the society as a whole to compete with its previous year's efforts. Somehow the book distribution must be doubled and tripled as far as possible. Do it. As soon as the BBT library party had been formed, Prabhupada had told the members to get 50,000 orders, and he had asked the Radha Damodar party to expand to 100 buses. 100 buses. Wow. The competition was particularly high between Los Angeles, the Radha Damodar party, and Australia, and Srila Prabhupada encouraged them all, like a maestro calling for a fortissimo from the orchestra. Fortissimo means just taking the music to a high pitch. Srila Prabhupada was not giving careless, boastful instructions. The determination and sacrifice required to achieve these seemingly unattainable goals he knew well, and he wanted his devotees to work as he worked, with total dedication. He wanted them to try their utmost. His was the logic of hunting for the rhinoceros. He said, if a man attempting to shoot a rhinoceros failed, no one would criticize him. But if he succeeded, it would be considered wonderful. Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga. In fact, one of Prabhupada's secretary servant, Shyamsundar Prabhu, he has written his memories with Prabhupada in a book called Chasing the Rhinos. So, hunting for the rhinos. If somebody shoots at a rhino, chances are he's not going to kill him. But nobody would criticize because rhinos, they have very thick skin and bullets generally don't do any harm to them. But if he happens to kill the rhino, then everybody would be, yes, oh, it's so wonderful. So means have such a big goal for book distributors and for others also, but just specifically for book distributors. You are like, have such a big goal. If you miss it, no, everybody, it was impossible to achieve that. But if you make it, then everybody will hear, wow, it's so wonderful. So this was Prabhupada's philosophy. Your Sankirtan reports are very encouraging, especially that one girl, Gauri Dasi, has set an all ISKCON women's record of 108 big books. This is very wonderful. Formerly, this would have been considered impossible, but now, by Krishna's grace, everything is becoming possible. Encourage them all to increase more and more. Some devotees became confused by their god brothers and god sisters' rousing calls for competition and rivalry. This seemed like rivalry of the material world, which they had hoped to leave forever. Srila Prabhupada, however, explained the proper attitude of transcendental competition. The competition in spiritual world also there is competition, but there is no enviousness, no jealousy. It's a healthy competition. Competition and profiteering spirit are always there in the living entity. It is not that they can be artificially removed in some matter. Factually, we saw in Russia that by removing competition and profit calculation from society, the people were not at all happy, and still these things are going on. So we shall not expect that we are any different. Only difference is that our profit is for Krishna's pleasure, and our competition is how to please Krishna more than someone else. Even amongst the gopis, there is competition to please Krishna. There is envy also, but this envy is not material, it is transcendental. They are thinking, oh, she has done something more wonderful than me. That is very nice. But now let me do something even more wonderful, like that. So their whole idea is to please Krishna, but not to put somebody else down either. So this is transcendental competition. So I am pleased that you desire for competition with the God brothers to spread Krishna consciousness movement all over the world by printing our books. When a traveling Sankirtan party from one temple intensively distributed books in another city, the authorities at the local temple would often be disturbed. This problem came before Srila Prabhupada, who was inevitably called in to judge and to cool down the fires of competition. Prabhupada wrote to Keshav and Bhutatma, who had traveled all the way from San Francisco to London to distribute books, but had disturbed the devotees there by their fervor, by their intensity. Ultimately, it shall be up to the local temple president if the presence of your party is favorable or not. Everything considered. If he agrees, you may stay. Otherwise, if he judges it is unfavorable at the time, he may order you to go out. But just to avoid these things, better to arrange in advance with the GBC men concerned. Ours is a cooperative movement with Krishna and the advancement of the Krishna movement at the center. And we must continue to sell as many books as possible, but discuss everything amongst yourselves and do it nicely without irritating anyone. That is the art. So, so yes, there could be problems between devotees from different temples distributing books at the same point, same spot, or same city. So yeah, there should be cooperation. There should be. Um, Once in Gurgaon, I remember we had set up a book table and we were distributing books outside a metro station. Some devotees from Gurgaon Youth Center also, they came and they asked me if they can distribute books over there. For me, there was no problem. You distribute, there's no issue at all. And they were carrying big bags of books and running around. I told them, okay, you come, leave your bags here. You take books from my table, keep the money to yourself. At the end, you just we'll make the accounts. Don't worry. You give me books from your bags once you're done. No problem. I mean, we are just here to serve. I'm not here for any scores. So they became very enthusiastic. They really appreciated it. I said, don't carry these big book bags and run around. Take two, three books from the table and distribute them. And when you're done, take more books. Ultimately, it's all to serve Krishna. All services to please Krishna, nothing else. Seeing the mighty efforts of top book distributors, some devotees became envious or at least dispirited, thinking themselves useless and unable to please Srila Prabhupada. This problem also came before Prabhupada, who replied, there must always be competition. That gives life, that cannot be separated from life. The perfect society does not eliminate competition, but it eliminates envy because everyone is weak before Krishna. But competition had its limit, as Prabhupada explained to a doubting brahmachari in Florida. It is not so much important the quantity of books that we distribute, but that we serve Krishna as best we can and depend on Him for the result. But it should not come to the point of making us lose our Krishna consciousness. That is most important. When you have these feelings, do not mistake it for enviousness, but take it to be an indirect appreciation of the service done by your other God brothers. This is spiritual. In the material world, when someone surpasses us in some way, we become angry and plan how to stop him. But in the spiritual world, when someone does some better service, we think, oh, he has done so nicely. Let me help him to execute his service. Let me help him to execute. Let me serve him so he can serve better. That is real mode of service. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी।
Hare Krishna.
प्रभु जी ये बिग बुक्स जो इसमें मेंशन करते हैं, व्हाट डू दे मीन बाय बिग बुक्स? इट्स लाइक गीता दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट?
Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Krishna book.
अच्छा, ओके।
Then medium books are like teachings of Lord Chaitanya, uh, or the light of Bhagavat. And small books are like Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, they're very small books.
हाँ, साइज के हिसाब से।
Size wise, yeah. And then comes a magazine like Back to Godhead magazine.
हाँ हाँ। Thank you,
They are
Prabhuji.
very nice, Prabhuji. Back to Godhead. I've read few of them.
Yeah, when I see it. ठीक है, you all have safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.